Hi everybody, welcome back to Sunshine Soap and Candle Company. If you're new to my channel, thanks so much for being here. My name is Corey and I'm the owner and the maker of all the things at Sunshine Soap and Candle Company. Today we're going to be making a liquid soap. You guys have been asking for a long time and I have formulated a body wash, a liquid body wash that I think you're really going to like. And I am a little bit off schedule on my videos, particularly because I've been taking a really deep dive into all things liquid soap. So my plan is to share with you over the next couple weeks some really good recipes and things you can take away and use yourself. And hopefully we'll start selling some of these products on the website soon. So this video, I'm going to be sharing with you the process of how to make a liquid soap from scratch. And I'm going to be giving you tips and tricks along the way. If you would like the full written recipe and tutorial, please visit my Patreon campaign where you can unlock this recipe and so much more for just a $5 pledge. All right, let's get started. Okay, so we are going to be making a liquid soap from scratch hot process method. So there are lots of different ways to do it. This is the one I'm showing you today. This particular type of soap has lots of phases or steps that you have to follow. So I'm going to try to break this video down for you in a phase by phase or step by step manner. So at the end of this video, this type of soap making hopefully will make a lot more sense to you. So the first thing we're going to do is go ahead and create our lye in our water solution. Over here in my crock pot, I have my melted oils and hard oils. So this is setting at around 160 degrees. And we want to keep the melted oils at 160 to 170 degrees. So that's why I have it sitting in my crock pot right now. And right now it's set on high. So we want to keep this going here, melted down. And today we're using sunflower oil, coconut oil. We're using sunflower oil for its emollient properties. We're using coconut oil for its cleansing properties, and it makes great bubbles. We're using palm oil to give the soap some body, and we're also using castor oil for the bubbles, and also castor oil does help with the clarity of the soap, and that's very important. So the next thing we need to do is combine our lye and water solution, and this is not sodium hydroxide lye, this is potassium hydroxide lye. This is what you use when you're making a hot process liquid soap from scratch. There's lots of other ways to do this, but this is the way that we're doing this today. So hopefully in the following weeks, I can show you some other ways also to do this. So I'm going to go ahead and put on my goggles. We want to make sure that we are definitely practicing lye safety with long sleeves, gloves, long pants, and closed-toed shoes. All right, so we're going to go ahead and combine this because we want to make sure that we're combining our water and lye solution to our oils when everything is still in that 160 to 170 degree range. All right, so this is phase one, our melted oils, and now we're creating our lye solution. And when potassium hydroxide hits the water and you start to stir it, it'll make a whooshing sound. So I'm hoping the camera will pick that up for you. So we're just gonna go ahead and carefully get that all poured in. And then as I stir, did you hear that? Very cool. So that's just one of those things, the chemical process. So we're just gonna go ahead and stir this up a little bit. As you can see, it does put off fumes. If you're not in a well-ventilated area, make sure when you're making this, you're in a well-ventilated area, windows open. You don't wanna be breathing in any of these fumes. Okay. So that's gonna get real hot real fast. And I'm gonna go ahead and take a temperature read on it. We're sitting at 140 degrees. Okay. Now my distilled water was rather cool, so we're probably not gonna get much hotter than that. And that's okay because we are going to be cooking it with the oils here very soon. Okay, so what I'm doing right now is just kind of waiting for my solution to go clear, and it's almost there. And as soon as it goes clear, we're gonna add it to our melted oils. So I'll be right back when we are ready to go ahead and combine the two. All right, so my lye water solution is now clear and it's still very hot, and we're gonna slowly add it to our melted down oils and hard oils. We're gonna mix it by hand at first, and then we're gonna stick blend this until it reaches trace. So that process itself takes a long time. So I'm gonna try to bring you through the different phases of what that looks like. We'll probably be fast forwarding and then just letting you see what that looks like so you don't have to sit through the whole process. But we're just gonna slowly pour this lye water solution. I am gonna be breaking the fall here with my spatula, so we're not splashing. Okay, I'm gonna give this a quick stir by hand. Now you can already see it is starting to chemically turn into soap. And this recipe is gonna reach trace quickly. I've designed it in such a way that I wanna take some of that complication out of it, and you'll see what I mean in just a minute. So now I'm gonna take my stick blender, and we're gonna go ahead and blend this on low, and I will take you through the different phases. So we're trying to reach trace. Okay, as you can see at this point, it's emulsified and we're incorporating in some bubbles, totally normal. We're just gonna keep rotating between kind of hand blending here, giving your stick blender a break, and blending with the stick blender until really you're going for, it gets so thick you can't blend anymore. That's what you're going for. If you see your soap starting to get real big and fluffy, take a break with the stick blender and just keep constantly hand stirring it. It can get super puffy and come out over the top if you're not careful. So this part is important. You're just gonna stop your stick blender and give it a stir by hand if it starts to get super foamy. That's why my crock pot right now is about can hold about double the amount of soap that we're actually making here. We're just gonna give this a little break and we're gonna get going again. All right, we're gonna continue to blend. We are almost there. I want to show you what this looks like. We've reached a point in the hot process method here where what soap makers would call this the applesauce phase, because it looks a lot like applesauce. It's kind of chunky. So we're just going to keep blending until we cannot blend anymore. All right, after much stick blending and hand stirring, we are sitting at a very thick trace. We're not at any danger of the oils and the lye and water separating out from each other. And so now we just need to let this soap cook for a total of 3 hours. We are sitting on high on this crock pot, and you want to maintain between 160 and 170. Right now we're at 168 degrees Fahrenheit, and we're just going to pop the lid on and let this cook. And what we're doing is we're trying to bring the soap down to a more neutral state. Right now, the pH is still way too high, so we are cooking it down to bring the pH down to a more neutral state. And we're gonna check it every half an hour or so and give it a little stir. And what we're looking for is translucency. So right now the soap is still super opaque. Once it gets down to more neutral state, you're gonna see this soap paste go from this color to a more golden, translucent color. So I will bring you back at the end of the cooking process, and then we'll go into the next phase of the liquid soap making. Okay, I wanted to show you this real quick. We're about 2 hours into the cooking process, and the soap has a tendency to puff up, kind of like a souffle effect. So you have to come in here about every 20 minutes or so and just watch it and give it a good stir. And stir out that puffiness. Stir out some of that air. Just release it. So I just wanted you to see what that looked like. All right, we've got about another hour to go, so I'll bring you back when we're all finished cooking the soap. Okay, so the soap paste has been cooking now for a full 3 hours, and as you can see, it's got a nice kind of translucent sheen to it, and it will continue to look more translucent as it cools down, but it's still very hot and fluid, sitting at around 165 degrees. So we're gonna put this over to the side and allow it to cool a little bit more. And we already did test it to make sure that it had come to neutral. So the way that I did that was I took 2 ounces of the paste from here and I put it at the bottom of the Pyrex, and then I weighed out another 4 ounces of distilled water and I boiled it. And then I poured the boiling water over the soap paste and just stirred it until the soap paste was completely dissolved. And as you can see, it's very clear. And the test is if you put a piece of paper with writing like underneath of it and you can see the writing and it's clear and you can read it, then your soap is neutral. So we have reached a neutral state, and the next thing that we need to do is now actually make our liquid soap. So I will bring you back for that process. All right, so we're now in the next phase of this liquid soap making process, and it's called the dilution phase. So we need to take a bit of this paste and dilute it down to create our liquid soap. This by itself is a very concentrated soap paste, so we need to dilute it and make it liquid and skin friendly. So what I did was I took all the paste out of this crock pot and I put it into this container for storage. You can store your paste in the refrigerator pretty indefinitely. And what I've done is just put back 1 pound of the soap paste into the crock pot. I've turned it on high, and now we need to add our distilled water. All right, so in this beaker, I have some distilled water that I've heated up in the microwave to an almost boiling point. The hotter the water is, the easier it is for this paste to dissolve. So we're gonna go ahead and just pour off the hot distilled water. Now it's really important that your water is distilled. If you are not using distilled water, if you're using water from the tap or even drinking water that has minerals in it, your soap isn't gonna come out as clear. It could be cloudy because the minerals can cloud up the soap, and we want our soap base to be very clear. So as you can see, I've incorporated in some bubbles, and I don't want to do a whole lot of stirring, but I have my crock pot on high, and I'm just going to go ahead and kind of mash up the soap paste just a little bit, just to kind of get it lifted up off the bottom there and kind of dispersed into the water a bit. And I'm using a whisk. It's a bit easier to use a whisk. Just kind of move that soap paste up off the bottom of the crock pot. And then once we get this all in the water and kind of evenly dispersed, we're just gonna pop the lid back on the crock pot, and we're just gonna allow it to sit at high temperature for a while until this all melts down. Now, if this is not all the way melted or dissolved, if this is not all the way dissolved into the water before I go to bed, I'll just turn the crock pot off and let it sit overnight. Okay. So you can see we're getting some stubborn bubbles in there, and what you can do to help eliminate the bubbles is just to take a bit of rubbing alcohol and spritz it, and it'll take care of the bubbles. But at this point, we don't want to incorporate a bunch of bubbles. We're just trying to get this concentrated soap paste all dissolved into this water. So I'm just gonna go ahead and break it up a little bit more with my spatula and my whisk until it's kind of evenly dispersed around the water. All right, just like that. And then this should help it to break up and kind of dissolve. Okay, so I will bring you back when the soap paste is completely dissolved into this water, and we'll go into our next phase. I am putting the lid on this so I don't lose any water to evaporation. All right, I'll be right back to share with you the next phase. All right, everybody, so the soap paste is now completely dissolved into the distilled water, and we've reached the additive stage of the liquid soap making process. So we're gonna be putting some additives into this for different reasons, and I'm gonna be explaining those reasons to you right now. I went ahead and turned off the crock pot. It's easier to put these additives in now while the soap is still warm. So I am adding in a little bit of citric acid and distilled water. This is a 20% citric acid solution, and the reason why I'm doing this is to bring the pH of this soap down a little bit. Soap from scratch using potassium hydroxide is not going to be a real low pH. Otherwise you will throw this soap out of suspension, but we do need to lower it a little bit from where it is now. So we're adding in a little bit of 20% citric acid solution, and we're just going to go ahead and give that a stir. And as you can see, it's just easier to add all this stuff in while the soap is still warm. So we're just going to give that a stir, and that will dissolve down. All right, we got all that citric acid solution mixed in and dissolved, and now we're going to be adding in some other additives. At this point you could stop. You really don't have to add anything else. You have a nice liquid soap with a good final pH. You just let it cool and put it in your bottles. But we're going to be adding in some other things in here to just make this a really nice full-bodied shower gel type soap. So first things first, we're going to be putting in some vegetable glycerin. Also in this little container is some liquid silk. We're using the vegetable glycerin to give this soap some more viscosity and some nice lather and bubbles, long-lasting bubbles. With glycerin you get that long-lasting bubble effect. And then we're adding liquid silk just to make this formula really luxurious and silky feeling. And then also in this container is a product called Cocoa Betaine, or we're using the Bubble Up brand from Crafter's Choice. And that is just to also boost lather. This by itself is going to have a really good lather already, but I like my liquid soaps to be really bubbly and to produce nice, big, long-lasting bubbles. So we're going to be adding in a little Cocoa Betaine, which is a plant-based surfactant, just to help with that bubble action. Okay, we're going to give that a good mix. And then the last thing we're going to be adding tonight is our fragrance oil. Now this is when things can get a little bit sideways with cold processed soap and also with liquid soap. The smell, however, is not going to morph because our soap has already undergone all the pH changes that it's going to go through. So the fragrance in the soap is not going to morph. However, if we add certain fragrances to liquid soap base. It can react with your recipe and make your soap thicker. It can also do something like make your liquid soap water thin, and it can also cloud up the soap. Now, I've used this particular fragrance oil and tested it in liquid soap, and it seems to work really well. So the last thing we're going to be adding tonight is some fragrance oil called Lush Succulent by Brambleberry, and it's a really nice water white fragrance, and it smells so good. It's just like a clean and green kind of herbally fragrance. We're going to add this in. It's better to add it in when the soap is warm. This and everything will combine. So we're going to go ahead and you might notice some initial clouding when this goes in, but not to worry. This soap should be perfectly clear in several hours. So we're just going to go ahead and get that all mixed in, and then we are going to just keep the crock pot off. We're going to put the lid on, and then tomorrow we're going to be adding in our color and our thickener. This soap is going to cure out tonight to just be very, very thin in consistency, and I'll talk a little bit more about that tomorrow when we add the thickeners. Okay, everybody, it's the next day, and my soap is now moved into this transparent container so you can see what I'm doing, and the soap has reached room temperature, which in my house is around 70 degrees. So as you can see, the soap is not completely clear. Now, you did see in my clarity test that the soap will get clear, so this is due to some of the additives that I've put in here. Not the fragrance oil, because I've used this fragrance oil in liquid soap before with no issues. So my thought is it's the liquid silk. So I have another batch going that I'm gonna make without the liquid silk, just to go ahead and compare the differences. I'm actually okay with this cloudiness. Years ago, I used to get really hung up on making the soap very transparent, and I found I just don't really care anymore. But for the purposes of this video and for experimentation, I'm gonna go ahead and just omit the silk in the next batch. Also, something you should know is the soap will need to sequester for about a week. So the clarity on this could possibly come up to clear over the next several days. I suspect not, though. I think this is probably gonna be the final outcome. So the soap has some pretty good body to it, and there is some resistance to me stirring. The spatula has a little bit of resistance on it, but as you can see, we are at a very liquidy state. It's probably the consistency if you've ever warmed up honey or watered down honey. It's about that consistency. It's not water thin, but it's not exactly where I would want my liquid soaps to be. We're used to very full-bodied soaps when we buy them in the store. They are full of commercial thickeners and things like that. So this is not an indication of how concentrated the soap is. This is just the way it is until you add thickeners to it for the most part. There are some gel methods and things like that, but for the most part, your soap is going to be super thin when you make it from scratch. So first things first, we're going to add a little bit of water-soluble dye, and I'm using teal, and the reason I'm using teal is because this has a quite yellow base to it, and I want it to be kind of a green color. So I think if I add the teal into here mixed with the color that the soap already is, we're going to get a nice green or bluish green. So I've just put in the tiniest little bit in there. Just like something I probably couldn't even weigh out, just the tiniest little bit. And that's good. That's actually the exact color I was going for, kind of just that succulent green color. So I'm just gonna go ahead and make sure I get this all mixed up. There we go. Such a pretty color. Such a nice color. Okay, so the last thing we're gonna do here is thicken this soap up with a product called Liquid Crowfix. Now you can get this at any soap supply store. I picked mine up at Brambleberry, and really this is kind of like based on how much you want to put in. So it really is a personal preference on how thick you want the soap. So I'm going for sort of a shower gel, thick, full-bodied consistency here. So I'm gonna start by pouring just a little bit in. A little bit kind of goes a long way. And I'll show you how this works. So you see I just poured in a little bit, and I'm gonna start stirring. Now the trick with the Liquid Crowfix is to put in a little bit, stir, and then wait for 10 minutes because it continues to thicken up. So I'll bring you back after I get this soap to the consistency that I want. But as you can see, it's already starting to thicken a little bit. So I'll bring you back when I get the consistency that I want and show you what this does. But again, it takes about 10 minutes between each little pour to see how thick it really gets. All right, everybody, I've added enough Liquid Crowfix now to this to make it the consistency that I like, and it is really a nice viscosity here. It's kind of like honey when you squeeze it out of the little honey containers, which is perfect. And honestly, it might thin out just a tiny bit after these bubbles kind of flatten out. Of course, stirring in bubbles makes it feel slightly thicker, but this is a really nice consistency. So I'm gonna go ahead and fill up my containers, and then we'll do a little lather test. So I'm just using some 8-ounce plastic containers from Nature's Garden. All right, they're all filled up. I just wanted to show you close up the viscosity of this soap. So nice. All right, we're gonna go ahead and go to the sink and do a lather test. All right, everybody, we're at the sink and we're gonna give this a quick lather test on the loofah. So I'm just gonna squirt a few little pumps in there. Some water going on it. Take a look at that. It has an absolutely gorgeous, really silky lather. It feels really soft and conditioning. This is a very beautiful formula. And as this sequesters over the next week, it does have to sit for about a week before you really can get a true test of what the lather is going to be like, or really before you should be giving it away or selling it. But so far, that lather is absolutely gorgeous. It's got tight little dense foaming bubbles, and it's a very conditioning, beautiful lather. All right, everybody, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. I know you've been waiting for a long time for a liquid soap video. If you liked this video and you want more content like this, please remember to like, comment, subscribe to my channel, and share with a friend. Catch you on the next video.